Welcome and thank you for joining us. This is Getting to Know. It is back for the first time in months. I am Mike Jeffries, and today I am joined by the reigning Three Pistols champion, Mr. Van Landon. Van, thank you so much for joining me. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling real good, and because we are in the FLCC arena right now, I want to shout out TCO and give you a Van Landon.
I can't escape that anywhere I go. I'm glad that we got the door locked so he can't come bursting in. If you haven't seen our Barrie Wrestling Awards show, go check it out on the YouTube channel and you can see that I think you've got him on retainer just to announce that. But getting us started, Van, where are you from and how long have you been wrestling?
So I've been wrestling since 2019, and I am from a little town just north of Barrie called Orillia, Ontario. You may have heard of it.
Also the home of yours truly, Orillia, Ontario, the Sunshine City.
Yes. But I've been wrestling since 2019. Of course, a pandemic happened in the middle of those years, so that happened. But going on just about 5 years now.
And I do want to also say, this is the second time we've attempted this interview. We tried this last October, and the audio, I only had one mic plugged in. I also interviewed Bobby Orlando that day, and the audio for that's completely shot. I'll never forgive myself. But this is attempt number 2 for my Orillia brethren. And usually I ask people what brought you to Barrie Wrestling, and they talk about their first match, but you started here as a fan. But what brought you to Barrie Wrestling as a fan? What first brought you in the building?
Honestly, my love of wrestling just in general, and my father knew that. And up in Orillia, we do not get pro wrestling.
Not good ones.
Not good ones, and really nothing under any circumstance. And so looking, around the area for possible wrestling shows to attend, that's not WWE. Back then, I think it was 2014, I came to my first show in this building, got to see a ladder match, got to see John Greed, the boss, for the very first time. A lot of very cool stuff, but it was literally just seeking out live pro wrestling in my area is how I found Barrie Wrestling, and the rest is history.
And it wasn't, because we're going to have our 10th anniversary show in November of 2024, so it wasn't even Barrie Wrestling at that point. It was still under previous management and then transitioned into Barrie Wrestling in late 2014.
Yes.
And now was my first experience here, I didn't know what indie wrestling looked like, and I came out, and my first show was the return of Fight or Flight. The main event was Fight or Flight against Mark Wheeler and Holden Albright. But I remember there was a match, and I want to say it was Kevin Blackwood, Brent Banks, and Tarek in a triple threat.
Sounds about right.
And I'm like, this is not, like, I don't know what I was expecting, mud show, whatever that cornet term is, and I'm like, this is good. So did you have a similar kind of first reaction? Like, this is really good.
Oh, absolutely. Because the shows that I had attended previously were always just one-off spot shows.
Yeah.
You had a classic WWF Hall of Famer on the bill and a bunch of people that you had never heard of otherwise. And the quality of wrestling ranged from this guy is brand new to, okay, you're sort of getting there now.
You're almost there.
Barrie Wrestling was the total package. They had stories, they had characters, they had fantastic wrestling, they had a vibe. And even in the early stages, when, say, the audience wasn't as full as it is now, it still had that atmosphere. And it's always been brewing and building ever since, and the longtime fans really know just how special it is.
Yeah, that's 100% it. And speaking of, as your podcast partner coined it, from fan to van. So you were a fan, you were ring crew when I first met you, and then you became a wrestler. So you had a lot of knowledge before getting into the ring. So kind of 2 questions. What was the biggest surprise for you when you started working a match? And what was the thing that was like, oh yeah, no, this is basically what I expected?
Great question. For me, so much of my upbringing in wrestling was actually here, whether it was seminars and getting lessons in the ring through that, but also the ring crew and building the ring and all sorts of things like that. The one thing that sort of surprised me, I guess you could say, is, how easily difficult wrestling can be perceived. A lot of people think that It is very easy, that the ring is just a trampoline. It is not a trampoline, trust me. It's a multi-step process to get that thing put together. And I've done it with me and one other person, and I've done that with me and 10 other people. And no matter what, the ring process is something that a lot of people underestimate.
Yeah.
One thing that surprised me in a positive way, though, is in those same early days, getting my first seminar experience, wrestling in a ring for the very first time. What surprised me was how quickly I knew this was for me. It was the first time we were in there with a wrestler doing a seminar, and he teaches us how to bump. And the range of people range from, older folks, younger kids, me at the time 16, and everything in between. And I was just 18 at the time in 2016, pardon. But I did, I took my first bump, and for a lot of those people, that was the last time they entered a wrestling ring. I was there every month after that.
I have leaned on the ropes, and I'm like, I don't want to run into these under any circumstances. No, I have helped, I paid my dues as a commentator and announcer. I helped build the ring. I also made a mistake while filming of leaning slightly too close to the ring, but not actually touching it. And it was an Albright took a suplex, and the ring shifted. And if you ever, I'd have to find the video because you can see the camera tilt as my ribs get collapsed. But it's not fun to land on. And I had somebody, actually, it was a former ref, Phoenix, John, be like, you can learn how to bump. I'm like, no, I'm good. I turned 40 this year. The days maybe 22 years ago, maybe, but I'm good. So yeah, I can imagine, and I think it's helpful though to know all of the steps in, because you respect the ring and you respect your opponent. Now I want to take you to your first match here in Barrie.
Okay.
Because now, correct me, your first match overall was not in Barrie, correct? You debuted. Your first match was elsewhere. And I will let you shout out because you were trained by
Rip Impact at the Hamilton Pro Wrestling Academy. Still operates. Check us out, Hamilton Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, a lot of respect for Rip. But when you first wrestled here in Barrie, 25 minutes from the much more beautiful city of Aurelia, where we're from, and in front of people that you sat beside and you built the ring with, before the match, what were you feeling? Because I'm also gapping on who your opponent was for your first match, which I'm trying to remember.
I can tell you. The first time that Van Landon ever came out of the FLCC arena was against Corey Stone.
Right.
In October of 2021 on a show called New Dawn Fades. And it was either the first or second show sort of back in still COVID-19 times, but it was the first time we were back inside the arena under limited seating, obviously. And the way in which that all came about, my podcast partner and friend, Holden Albright, was taking a bit of an excursion, and he was in the midst of a rivalry with Corey Stone. Needed somebody to fill in his place for that match and put forth the young Van Landon. For me, before I went out that night, it was all the emotions that you could possibly feel in one shot. It was, this is everything I've worked for. This is everything I've wanted. This is my moment. And the minute you go through that curtain and, the red light may be on, it's go time. And from there, I did my match. Unfortunately, was unsuccessful. Corey Stone is a big boy.
He is.
Evil boy as well. And so he defeated me in my first match, but that did not stop. If you were to just quit and give up after your first match, what is wrestling then? You get back up and you keep going. And it was the experience of wrestling out in that arena in front of those people, like you said, people that I used to sit beside, people that I used to wait in line with tickets for. And I realized, these are my people, and this is everything I've wanted. And it was only a driving force of motivation, that loss, from there on out. And now look where we're at.
Well, and I can say, I believe I have called, excluding fair shows, I have called every one of your Barrie wrestling matches, and the improvement I've seen in you is incredible. And also, I think every show you're like, I got a new move name. No, that move name isn't there anymore. It's better than
true.
Myung Jae Lee, come up with a move name. Sorry, drives me. Yeah, that's a side story. You mentioned podcast mate Holden Albright, who has also been on the Getting to Know. Check out that interview with some edits that let it stay on YouTube. You and he had a tremendous feud here that started when you were partners, and you might have got a little bit too big for your britches, maybe a bit, not wanting to tag out, but it ended with one of the craziest matches we've had. It was a street fight, I want to say January 2023, which started outside, worked its way inside, and ended with you hitting a Superfly splash off the top of a ladder. Now, what did you learn from that feud? Like, what did you take away, both as Van Landon and as a wrestler, from that feud?
That feud was so much fun. That's, like, if I had to retire, I would look back at that feud as my coup de grace. What I learned from that was so invaluable. And to pull back the curtain, ladies and gentlemen, what I learned from that is sort of like the basics of storytelling, feuds, character work, character development, all the different factors that some people may lose sight of when they're traveling show to show and match after match. But in Barrie, and I mentioned it earlier in this episode, there's characters, there's storylines, there's feuds, and that's how Barrie Wrestling operates and why it succeeds so well. Is
100%.
We are a feuds promotion. So when Albright and I were facing off against each other, and like you said, it started as sort of like this quirky older brother, little brother sort of dynamic, and he gets fed up with it and wants to unleash an animal out of me, but I know that I'm not going to go full monster like he is. So it built this great dynamic which culminated in the hardcore match, and paying that off with jumping off of a ladder, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I always think back to when I was the fan of Barrie Wrestling. What stands out to me? What are those matches and those moments that the fans still talk about? And that was something that Albright and I could paint that picture for them. We could give them a match that they will talk about for years to come.
I think that feud and that culmination match, it's that and Reverso and Gabriel Fuerza, their feud, which ended with the cage match. And so Reverso, Dan Pisano doing a moonsault off the cage and you doing the splash off the ladder are my two moments on commentary where if you listen to it's genuine. That is not me. I never play a character. I'm not a good actor. But that's me being like, you're insane. Please don't hurt yourself. Like that's my fear there. But it was the first time that we had seen a different side of Van Landon. You're a little bit clean cut coming out. You're to use the term, a baby face like myself here. And that, do you think it was important to give you an edge and to show people, and I'll go back to not comparing you to Triple H, but Triple H talks about, the feud with Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, and how it helped him. Did you see a similar thing with, honestly, Albright is our resident Cactus Jack here, and I think he'd appreciate that.
He would. I think that's actually a great comparison, especially that Rumble 2000 hardcore match that really helped put Triple H over the edge. For me, I think you're absolutely right. It's that match to give you that edge. It gives you that bit more substance. And for a while, the fans knew me as the happy, having fun. I'm going to spin you around, rev it up with Van Landon. And that feud is where I finally got sort of checked. Mm-hmm. And Albright said, actually, no, we're not going to have fun, and I'm going to try to hurt you physically. And are you going to answer, or are you going to try to have fun? Because if you try to have fun, I'm going to hurt you. And that's exactly where that edge was built naturally from. I had to sharpen your skills. And iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
And going up against somebody who's physically bigger, stronger, and more experienced,
and insane,
and clinically insane, trying to hurt you, that's something that you learn real quick what you are or are not capable of. And we know the results of that match. Watch it on IWTV.
It is one of the best matches, one of the better feuds we've had here in Barrie Wrestling since I've been around. It was awesome, and that street fight was something special. Now let's talk a little bit more modern. You got around your waist right now the Three Pistols Championship, and you defeated Von Vertigo for that title a month ago. Now, less modern, 5 years ago this week, Von Vertigo won the Barrie Wrestling Championship. And honestly, the two loudest end of match reactions I've heard were that match and your victory. You were in the crowd, and if I have any video editing skills, I'll throw the stills up because we have footage of this young man in a hat sitting in the corner, clean shaven, watching Von Vertigo. I have gotten your two names mixed up so often. Anyways, watching Von Vertigo win the Barrie Wrestling Championship. If you could go back to 2019 Van Landon and tell him what just happened, how do you think he would react?
He wouldn't believe you. He wouldn't believe you, plain and simple. 2019 Van Landon, at that point, I had begun my official training at the HPW Academy, but I was still here doing my routine, setting up, tearing down, just helping out. Why? Because I love pro wrestling and I want it to grow and to continue. And of course, the goal was eventually to become a wrestler here one day. But at that point, it was so far away that I wasn't delusional in being like, okay, this is out of reach currently. For me to go back in time and tell Van Landon sitting by himself in the crowd, you're going to beat Von Vertigo for the Three Pistols title one day in 5 years. Yeah, I think he wouldn't believe you. And then when you showed him the footage, I think he would start crying because the amount of growth, the physical transition, physique-wise, just the overall ability. Not for nothing, it was a pretty decent match as well.
It was a great match.
Despite him trying to just do everything possible to retain his title. But it's so fulfilling to be able to call myself a champion for the place that I really love most.
I heard, somebody say that winning a title is kind of like getting a promotion at work, right? You can look at it however you want, but it's they have faith in you. They have trust in you, right? And it is well earned. And I watched back and the video, we do the little highlight video every show. It's edited by a guy who's a really good video editor, a lot better than I am. And the final shot of that is you being handed the title by the ref. And you're not that good of an actor. That emotion on your face is very real. And I want to know, did you take a moment to appreciate it? In that moment, like, were you able to absorb what was going on?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely, if you watch a WWE backstage documentary or anything like that, you've always heard the phrases or the cliches like, soak it in, take that moment.
Yeah.
And that's reality, because when that moment's gone, you may never have a moment like that again. And I was fortunate enough to, while being in the ring after that 3 count, I was able to sort of check myself back into my mind. I wasn't necessarily full Van Landon after that final bell, and there was a lot of real emotion that came out. I got to see a sea full of the Barrie Wrestling fans. Like I refer to them as my people because they are my people. I got to see a lot of my close family that was there for that, and to be able to share that moment with them. People dream of winning the main event of WrestleMania. This means to me probably equal to that. And that is full-hearted. That is my moment. And I was able to soak that in. And it was tough to leave, I'll be honest. It is tough to leave when you're experiencing all that fanfare and that rush of adrenaline and emotion. It's pretty impactful. It's pretty special. And it's why all my trips to Hamilton, all of the gas mileage, the 2 cars I drove into the grounds, it made it all worth it, because this is what it's all about. You fans and, like you said, the promotion. I would say it's the culmination of a lot of hard work, but it's not, because there's still a lot to go. You're still young, and you still got a lot ahead of you, including some title defenses. And tonight against, we don't know yet. So you're stealing the Invitational from Vertigo too? Like, you took his title, now you're stealing that shtick? So the Von Vertigo Invitational is a Barrie Wrestling fan favorite, and you're right. I was a big fan of who was going to answer the call. And while I didn't necessarily make a match graphic that says Van Landon's Invitational with Simpsons characters and Scott Pilgrim and Mordecai and a few other people like that, the door is open. Please, I want this open challenge. I had 2 successful defenses of this title over Canada Day Clash, and so now we are here at Summer Brawl. Van Landon's doing an open challenge in the same vein as what was once the Von Vertical Invitational, but doors open. I want competition. Bring it on.
I love to see it. We touched at the top. You touched on your entrance, your intro from Tyler TCO, Counted Out 7, the podcast, and where did that initially come from? Because I assume it was just him doing his thing. And then what was your first reaction to him pretty much destroying his voice, introducing you?
I love you, Tyler. Thank you for making my entrance as grand as you possibly can with your vocal cords. That honestly comes from a few different factors. The first is, of course, my name and what I like to do. So Van Landon likes to rev it up. So many times, just in conversation, when somebody wants to talk to me, they go, Van, and rev it up and just sort of combine the two, which works because that's the sound that you get when you're revving your bike. I would know, I ride a dirt bike. And so that in combination with some successful TV ring announcer doing that same sort of cadence on, a Dean Ambrose name in AEW. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so it was really a perfect storm of all these things happening. And I don't think it was ever like a spoken thing, but more or less, once again, TCO, Tyler from Counted Out, youtube.com/Counted Out. Follow their stuff. Great podcast. But he sort of just took that upon himself and really tried to make it something special. And he's our Bruce Buffer. He's our Michael Buffer. And so for him to put that emphasis into your name, my name, anybody that's wrestling's name, it clicks with the audience.
I call him our less attractive Samantha Irvin. Significantly less attractive. That reminded me that my favorite intro for you though was a Canada Day show, and sorry Diamond Jim, and it was, I don't know, Multi-Man or whatever it was, but somehow Jim thought it was you and did the entrance, but it was Jesse V, which, no offense to you, might be the physically most opposite person we have here for you, but Jim's leaning into the high octane hometown, and Sean's going,
no,
Jesse,
no.
and my job was standing because the Canada Day entrance started so far away you couldn't really hear the ring, so I'm beckoning Jesse forwards, and I look back, I'm like, Jim, who are you introing? So anyways, that sticks out in my mind. But speaking of your nicknames, so I do send the questions ahead of time, but this I wanted to surprise you with because I got some new nicknames for you. I was thinking we're both from Aurelia. So, you're the high-octane hometown hero. You the barn burner. You like alliteration. So what about the Sunshine City Superstar?
That works. I like that. Not against that one bit.
The Mariposa Mauler.
If I was evil, I'm a mauler. I'm still pretty nice around here.
So we have a lake in Aurelia called Coochaching. How about the Coochaching Crusher?
Okay.
But you can't shorten that to Cooch because then it gets weird.
Then the Cooch Crusher, that's not safe for TV.
And I got one more for you. You're really innovative in the ring, and you move around. You're, as a wrestler, you've been to a lot of cities. What about the Creative Nomad? There are 4 people that will get that joke, and 2 of them are in this room right now. Worth it.
I'm not against that. We'll have to check the legalities, though.
All right. So thank you. So to wrap things up here, we're halfway through 2024. I'll give you 18 months in the future. By the end of 2025, what is one goal you, Van Landon, either personally or professionally, would like to achieve by the end of 2025?
By the end of 2025... 18 months. That's more than just a great Calvin Harris album. In 18 months, I would love it if I can help elevate Barrie wrestling. Obviously, FLCC Arena, we're selling out almost every show, if not every show. And I'm the champion. I want to continue that. I would love to defend this championship right through all those 18 months. That's up to me to not lose. But if I can help the growth of Barrie Wrestling grow into, something really big and great for Ontario, I think that would fulfill me tenfold.
We are, in a lot of ways, we were the best kept secret because we didn't have we didn't have production, and then thankfully some of the talent leaned on Barrie Wrestling management, was like, you need to film these shows, and we brought in, and I will always shout them out, Alan Taylor, Chrissy Bowman, the entire team. Incredible stuff. And yeah, now you can watch us on IWTV. We've got some matches up on YouTube. I do want you to shout out one match because you are defending that title at a very important show in August. So if you can talk about that for just a few seconds. It's being put on by one of our own, Gabriel Fuerza. Talk about that match, or that show.
You talked about the Alan Taylor team. I want to shout out Danny, Trevor, and Kyle as well.
Yes.
But you're right. This title is on the line if I defend successfully tonight.
Correct.
Which I'm going to do everything in my power to defend successfully tonight. But coming up on August 11th at the Don Koloff Arena in Mississauga, also known as Battle Arts, Mississauga, you will see the Barnburner Van Landon look to defend the Three Pistols Championship against Zico and somebody who I have a history with here, Myung Jae Lee.
Yes.
In a triple threat for the Three Pistols at a show hosted by the Friends of Fuerza, Gabriel Fuerza, Free Palestine. It's a show where all proceeds are going to the relief and aid for those affected by what is currently happening. I hope that you can reach deep down, come to this show, donate, do whatever it is that you would like to do. Obviously, the wrestling is going to be fantastic. I've got a sneak peek at what else is coming to that show. It will blow your minds.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow, if you don't follow Gabriel Fuerza on social media, that's probably the best way to get information. But August 11th, great show for a great cause. And last, where can people find you on social media and hype your podcast? Because it's pretty great too.
You can find me, Van Landon the Barn Burner. If you're a fan of Barrie Wrestling, please go out of your way to find me. At the Van Landon, TheVanLandon, everywhere. We're talking X, Facebook, TikTok, Hive. Remember that one?
Tout,
Instagram, all of it. Patreon.com/thevanlandon. You can find me everywhere. You can find me as well as that former pro wrestler Holden Albright. Do you think he's still on hiatus?
He's
I think
retired. I mean, he can do whatever he wants to do. I'm not going to tell him otherwise.
You can catch him and I every morning, 6 a.m. on Spotify, Van and Holden in the morning. If you like nonsense, that's what we bring you every single day, 6 a.m. Van and Holden in the morning. Follow me on socials. You'll get the updates.
It's family-friendly entertainment. I am Mike Jeffries. You can find me on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. On Twitter and Instagram at Mike Jeffries PA. Van, thank you so much. From one Aurelian to another, it has been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure watching you grow in that ring, and I look forward to everything you're going to do here in the future and hopefully defending that title for a very long time. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back soon. Take care.